Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Souders, Slunger Cat Outdoors, back with you again this afternoon. And I'm excited about being back like a couple weeks in a row. With this time of year, it's hard for me to tell whether for sure I'm going to be able to get off on time to work or not. But hey, I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. Thanks for joining. As always, make sure you guys can let me know you can hear me good. Everything's going good. My internet connection on my computer is taking a little bit of time to get uploaded. Run a little bit behind tonight, but hey, we're here. So make sure, as always, if this is your first time joining us, I want to say thank you guys for joining us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a topic that actually a buddy of mine and I was talking about on the way home, and it was ledges, and something that I took for granted that a lot of people, kind of, I guess, knew, or whenever I say ledges, they knew what I was talking about, knew how to kind of fish them. Glenn's Catfishing Adventure says he can't hear me. Make sure you guys let me know if you can hear me or not. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you guys can hear me good. Audio is low. All right, let's see if that helped any. Cranked it up. Well, for everybody that's just joining, tonight we're going to be talking about, ledges and how to fish them, and specifically this time of year. This late season and early season are extremely great times of the year to be fishing ledges, and we're going to discuss that, into detail about tonight. So, as we get started, I want to make sure that you guys, ask your questions, put them at Chris Souders, so they pop up and highlighted. And I'm going to see if I can get my chat up and going on here so that I can see it. Somebody's already popping up numbers. Telling you what. So, whenever we talk about ledges, or catfishing highways is what I like to call them, okay? We're talking about something that, and the reason we call them highways is because they are heavily traveled in certain times of the year. Certain times of the year, certain fish will use ledges more than others. Certain times of the year, some fish will be kind of pushed up into, structure and cover, and won't really move as much as other fish. So tonight we're going to discuss, what these highways are, how to find them, a lot of information on this topic, and I'm going to try to like cram it all into one session, but we may end up having to do this over 2, maybe 3, depending on how many questions we get. Okay. But what are the highways? How do we find them? Once we find them, what are the best ways to fish them, depending on the season? Justin, that is a great question, and I'm going to touch on that as we go through. All right, looks like we're going to be able to pull the chat up, so I'll be able to see it too. So to start with, what is a catfishing highway? A catfishing highway is a ledge that is defined, in your water system. That can be anywhere between, just a couple feet to as much as 20, 30, 40 feet of a sheer drop. Okay, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a sheer drop, but I just use that as a reference. But it needs to be a defined area from one depth to the other. Okay, and that is going to define the highway, an instance that we're talking about tonight. Johnny Robbins asked, does bait type matter much or make a difference much this time of year? And absolutely, absolutely, bait makes a difference in every, in my opinion, in every aspect of every season. Some bait fish I will use, springtime, summer and spring, summer and fall. Um, so it definitely makes a difference. I've been seeing a lot of transition from skipjack and moon eye to gizzard shad this time of year. So you just kind of got to play with that. All right. So let's talk. We're talking about ledge fishing, I guess, in general, ledges and what they are. And like I said, we talked about, it's a depth change. Um, and like I said, that doesn't have to be sheer drop like I mentioned, but that can be a kind of a gradual, but it has to be a defined ledge. Now, an easy way to find this is, of course, Navionics. Okay, and look here, look at that. Look. I feel good about this. Dry erase board. Oh yeah. You want to talk about stepping up the game? I mean, some people use computers. We got dry erase boards here at Slender Cat Outdoors. That's stepping it up right there. So anyway, if you have a body of water that is, that is lucky enough to have a Navionics map, made of it, then you have a huge advantage already. Now, does that mean that Navionics map is going to be correct or 100% right on, and that you should trust it 100%? No, you should always be looking, for little details in that area. Okay, that's what's going to make a difference between, possibly one day catching the fish of a lifetime, or just catching fish. All right, so now if you don't have Navionics, and if there's anybody on here that's not really familiar with Navionics, and you have questions about Navionics, how to use it, how to load it, some details and kind of hidden things within Navionics, website and their downloads, leave it in the comments. Let me know if you guys would like, to talk about that one night as well. I love Navionics. There is so much to learn. If you're going to a body of water that has Navionics, you can be so ahead of the game before you ever step foot on that body of water. You actually feel as if you have been fishing there for months before you get there, and that's a huge thing. Yeah, I know you enjoy the drawings. A lot of you guys do. So now let's say we got a river system, around where I learned how to fish and where I fish now. There is no Navionics charts for the river system. Okay, and for a lot of people that maybe your sonar doesn't have, you don't have to have side imaging. You don't have to have a high dollar, sonar to be able to figure this stuff out. A question and a comments that I get a lot are, how much do I need to spend on a sonar, or what kind of sonar do I need to be able to find ledges and find this kind of stuff. And this is one style of fishing that I honestly can say doesn't take a lot of, high-tech equipment to be able to do. You can do this extremely, easy and cheap with just a very basic sonar, just a 2D imaging sonar that you can buy for just couple $100. Okay, and with obviously, you need that, and you need a piece of paper to kind of take down notes as you're doing this, as you're as you're working it. If you don't have a sonar that has Navionics on it, or the ability to put Navionics on it, you can download what is, if, you know, most of us have smartphones now, and you can download Navionics maps on, you know, their apps on your phone. And for just a few dollars, you can have, you know, kind of a, you know, just the same as I would have on mine, except for it be on your phone and not on your Sonar. So that's something to look into as well. But like I said, if you guys want, you know, more information about Navionics and what, you know, kind of some hidden little secrets within Navionics itself and their downloads, let me know and we can do something, we can do more on that. But now back to what I was talking about before I got off on that little rabbit trail was, you know, if you don't have, you know, the ability to have a Navionics map, how are we going to locate this ledge, okay? Well, if we're in a, and I'm going to use an S because S is for my last name, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is your water, your river, okay? And we got the current. That's going, flowing this direction, okay? So we want to pick out a section of river that we want to fish. And I'm going to pick out this section right here, okay? So right off the bat, one thing to keep in mind is how a river will flow and how a river will meander, I guess you could say, and change year to year and season to season, depending on floods, settlement, washouts, barge traffic, you know, things like that. So all this stuff is really ever changing, and you should, you know, that's the beauty of something like this. You can go out one day and it's going to be different than the next. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're doing this. So as this current flows down and it's going to cut into this bank, it's going to make ledges. Okay, now does that mean there's going to be one ledge? No, there can be multiple ledges. And a little, kind of, I guess, a little tip that I would give you guys is if you can find a place that has multiple ledges on it, those to me have been extremely phenomenal and being more productive than just a normal ledge would be. Okay, and what I mean by double ledge, if it's going to be kind of like a 3D version, like if you was looking, if you're under the water and you're looking at the ledge, so that ledge is going to roll off and down, and then it might, you know, roll off again, and then it's going to flatten out. Okay, so this would be the top of your ledge, and this would be the bottom of your first ledge, and then it would kind of roll off down into the bottom, and this would be your flat. Okay, that is kind of like a double ledge to me, and that those can be very killer, and you can find those. You know, you're going to be able to find those in these curves. Okay, so now how do we go about this? And for everybody that is on here, I'm sure you guys all have watched Steve Douglas videos, and he has some you know, great videos on this particular thing, and it's something that I learned from as I was, you know, I guess growing up in the sport of catfishing and learning and wanting to learn. So as you're working this bank, you're going to want to, you know, kind of go side to side down through here. Okay, marking that depth as you work that ledge. And say I have a spot that is 40 foot right here, and I want, you know, I rode off, and that's where the bottom or the trough of that ledge was at. Well, every time that I would go up on that ledge and come off, I would want to mark that trough all the way down through here, okay? And that is going to be able to define my ledge, just as if, you know, you won't be able to see it as defined as you would like on a Navionics map, but you will be able to work that ledge the same as anybody else would, okay? Now, keep in mind, as you're working that ledge, to look for those double ledges. You may have to go out farther into that river system to be able to do it, but you know, your steeper ledges and your double ledges are going to be on this outside turn. Now, the great thing about this is there's also going to be an inside ledge. Now, these inside ledges are going to be slower normally. They're going to be a little bit more, you know, a little gradual. Sometimes this is where your mud, your sand, things like that's going to be a lot. And that's going to be on the inside, okay? And a lot of people, you know, or I guess I would tell you to just zigzag back and forth. But now, to be able to find, you know, this ledge over here, you can do the same thing. But if you are marking this ledge out on this side and you're zigzagging already, if you go just a little bit farther out into that flat, and then as that flat comes up and you mark the other side of that, that's going to give you both sides, okay? So you're going to have a good idea, a good picture of both sides of that ledge as you're working and meandering down through there. Tackling Cats, he asked a good question. Is this direction for blues or for flats? So this is going to be for both. Now, right now, where we're at, the flatheads are really getting close to being done. There's still a few flatheads being caught in our neck of the woods, but for the most part, you know, flatheads are just about done, and this is a good time to do this for blue cats, okay? Last weekend I had the pleasure of taking a couple buddies out that have helped me in the past. They're you know, good viewers of the show and things, but I was able to take them out, and one of them, he caught a blue cat that was 1 inch shy of making the West Virginia state record. Absolutely a beast of a blue cat for West Virginia. So that was great to see. Bob Ross of catfishing. What water temperature are flatheads done? P City, you know, it's hard to say exactly what water temperature they're done. Normally, I would say that it's a combination of things. It's how cold that water gets and how quick or how slow it gets to that point. For instance, this year, you know, the water stayed warmer longer than what it normally would have because of the slow current. And then all of a sudden it took a hard dive down, and it's like 47 degrees here where we're at now. And normally those fish would be done. But, you know, with that being said, it took a hard plunge, and, you know, those fish are still, you know, kind of eating and active a little bit. Very slow, very sluggish. There's a few being caught, and it probably won't last much longer, but you can still go out and catch, you know, a few, especially on the Kanawha River right now. All right, so we was talking about, you know, how to find that ledge, and, you know, just on a regular 2D sonar. So that is a little bit of direction on that. If you have it, you know, if I missed something or there's something else in that you know, you want to see, make sure you leave it in comments and we'll get to it tonight. So now, that is kind of a rough idea of what it is, what the catfish highways are, how to find them. You know, you got your Navionics. You can manually search. Another way, depending on the sonar that you have, and if you have this ability, please take advantage of it. It's called an Auto Chart Live. Lowrance has it. I know Humminbird has it. Take full advantage of that AutoChart Live, especially in river systems that don't have Navionics. That can set you worlds apart from other people in the ability to find those little nooks and crannies of places, okay? So, and with that, you just manually, you'll drive and it'll map out just like a topo map, and it'll be detailed right on your sonar, okay? So next, let's talk about how we're going to fish those this time of year. A lot of the times, we're talking about blue cats, we're talking about drifting, back bouncing, dragging baits, that kind of thing. This time of year, water temperature's getting down. For me, if I have current, I want to anchor up. We're talking about a river system. Now, if we're talking about lakes, it's a little bit different. I still may drag a little bit, until I find them. But in lakes and stuff like that, I really like to drag. That was a good question, and I lost it. Let me pull it back up here. How would a ledge located at the current seam of two major rivers change the way you would fish it? That's a good question. Real catnappers, yes. AutoChart Live. If you have a like a zero lines card for your Humminbird, it will store. You can save it on there and have it on there. For future reference. Okay. So Jeremy, let's talk about that question. Jeremy had a very good question. We're going to talk about. We got a river that comes in, and maybe another small river that comes in it right here. Okay, currents coming. I guess I got to hold that up there for you guys can see. Okay, so this would be the small river that would be coming in it. And he's asking if, let me make sure I got this right. Okay, so now you'd have a ledge coming down through here, okay? And then this water is going to be coming out. And where that ledge and that seam meet is going to create a point, okay? Now, that right there is going to make a very good area for you to fish and concentrate on. That point is going to be like a diversion. So those fish are going to, constantly be holding up on that point. It's going to create current blocks. It's going to create areas for bait to come through, and it's just a good ambush area. And those fish will kind of conjugate around that point. Anybody that like bass fishes or crappie fishes, that's the same thing. You gotta definitely bait or ledges with points if you can find a point area, and that is a good example of that. That makes a huge good area for that. Let me back up here. John Miller, he asked, do you look for buried islands on Navionics during daytime and cold water? John, as far as Navionics goes, I don't just look for islands. Something that really piques my interest whenever I'm looking, at Navionics is just the more lines, the squigglier, the crazier it looks, that really draws me to it. That just gives you, the more, how do I put this? the more unnatural it looks, like the just pure craziness, it seems like it works better for me. But now just underwater islands are good. I do fish underwater islands and I like those. Not just particularly for cold water or cold temperature. You know, I like them, you know, all year round. Hey, Robert, thanks for watching tonight, buddy. I appreciate that. All right. Will a lock or dam affect the way blue cats travel? For instance, pool 18 has blue cats, pool 20 doesn't. Chatter, are you talking about what river system are you talking about on that? And yes, it will affect the way they travel. Um, you know, they're naturally going to eventually make their way up, but blue cats have been tagged and studied, and they definitely will go back and forth through dam systems, through lock and dam systems. But you know, it can restrict those fish in a way. Um, okay, you're talking about the Mississippi. That's kind of what I thought you was talking about. You know, depending on the height of the dam, you know, will depend on, you know, if it's just an overflow dam, if it's actually, you know, the water comes out from underneath it. Depending on how hard it is for those fish to be able to get above and into that next water system will make a difference. Okay, so let's talk about Chris asked, how do I set up on an underwater island? A lot of that would depend on, you know, the body of water. Okay, if it's an underwater island and it's in a river system, you know, and this is islands period in a river system. You know, the ends of them are going to make. Let's just draw it here. So at the end, uh, at the end of an island, you're going to have a seam. As the water kicks around that island, at the end of that island, you're going to have a seam. Okay, and that makes a good area to anchor up on. At the head of that island, over years, brush and wood and things are going to get collected, and that's going to be another good place to catch like flatheads. You know, fish that maybe a low current situation, they will kind of come up on that head of that point and feed at nighttime. It's normally going to be a little bit shallower than the lower end, but on the lower end where that water kicks around, will sometimes have a washout. So uh, I'll definitely like to fish the sides of them and the lower ends of them. And then at nighttime, low current situations like in a river or something, I will fish the upper end of them. Now, if it's a complete underwater island, then you know I will just set up. If it's in a lake, I will drag it back and forth, up the outside edge of it, straight up the middle, maybe back and forth, depending on the wind direction, and you know, and figure out where those fish are at, and then concentrate on them. If I find that they're right on top or on the outside edges of it, then we will concentrate on those specific areas. Now, if I was in a lake and I specifically was wanting to anchor on it, you know, I would try it a couple different ways. I might try on the backside of it if I'm in that lake and that lake has current in it for that situation. Maybe those fish will be on the backside of it or on the outside edges of it. So, you know, I would always, those edges definitely are always a good place to, you know, to to try and start out with. Seeing a lot of questions flying by here. I'm gonna see if I can't get caught up on them. Okay, Jeremy says his particular example is where the Mississippi and the Red Rivers converge in central Louisiana. The heavy currents have caused a ledge that drops from 30 to 100, 35 to 100. Wow, that's a big ledge, man. Um, okay, so with that ledge being that deep, you know, something I would do is, you know, I wouldn't be scared to fish that 100-foot water. Um, you know, work that different depths down until you find those fish. Anytime I go to the Mississippi River, you know, I always try super deep water. Uh, now, if you can't, you know, back bounce through it, if that's something you can't do, maybe the current is like a back current or more of a still current. In that situation, you know, dead sticking, you know, with spot lock makes a good, you know, good way to really try to target those fish. Um, so hopefully that helps you out, Jeremy. And you know, something to keep in mind is whenever you're fishing that, if you're fishing, you know, to don't always put your baits all the way on the bottom. Those fish, you know, even if they're in 100 feet of water, may still be, you know, 60 foot or 80 foot, you know, not necessarily on bottom. Glenn's Catfishing Adventures, he asked, in my lake, the old river channel is still defined by ledges. What would you look for as the better ledge to fish? Glenn, that's kind of a tough question because that's unfortunately that is a day by day, you know, thing. Not necessarily one ledge is going to be good all the time. Um, you know, there's definitely in specific bodies of water, there are areas or ledges that seem to hold fish more so than others. But particularly, you know, me, I like I like a not like a real steep drop off. I like a slow, gradual. You know, it seems like I can, uh, you know, target those a little bit better. Now, something, you know, for me, I like to target specific depths. I like to be from like 25 to 40 foot. So I think a lot of that is, you know, what you feel confidence in. It's not necessarily finding, you know, what to look for to pick out one ledge is going to be better than the other. Uh, you know, you got to do that day by day. And I know that probably doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, but hopefully that helps. Larry asks, in a lake with an underwater island with a lot of structure, how do you keep from getting hung up? Buddy, unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast, and it's going to happen. You're going to get hung up. Uh, Try not to get frustrated. Uh, you know, do your best to be able to have stuff pre-tied, and you know, make sure that you can get back out there as quick as you can. You know, if you find those areas, if it's something that you can drag beside of, if you can map it out, mark it all out, then you know you can try to drag the sides of it and not stay as hung up before. But sometimes you got to go in there to get, you know, go in that stuff to be able to get those fish out. Okay, so wow, a lot of questions. Hopefully I am answering as many as I can. You know, and things are flying by. Um, Now, whenever something I want you guys to understand, and I want to talk about and kind of you know stress a little bit more is the fact that anytime, we talk about points, where those rivers come in, anytime that you guys can fish a point this time of year is going to be good. Normally, normally a point with a seam line is extremely well, and that's where you're going to get most of your seam lines at. Okay, this time of year specifically, you can get a seam line and a ledge very relatively close together. If you have okay, for instance, we got the current coming downriver. It's going to hit this point right here, and as that water kicks off, it's going to want to run down, downriver. Well, where that water kicks off, right there, there's normally going to be some sort of deeper ledge structure and that seam line, and that is going to be a good area for you guys to target this time of year. Okay. Kevin, he asked, do you ever use double hook rigs for large pieces of bait? Is it good? Is it good this time of year? Kevin, yes. Double hook rigs, the Kentucky rig, stacker rigs, whatever you guys want to call them in your part of the world. Big baits, small baits, both work good, and this is definitely a good time to do that. Trying to define if those fish are up off bottom or if they're right on bottom with a double hook rig or stacker rig is going to, let you key in on that a lot quicker. Okay. John, can you do a giveaway for the first autographed drawing? Actually, John, we used to do that, but this is a dry erase board, so can't tonight, buddy. Let's see. All right, so now we've talked a little bit about rivers, ledges in in lakes, why we fish them, how we find them, why they're productive. So why are these so productive this time of year? And mainly this time of year, springtime, they are very productive because those fish are migrating back and forth from feeding areas, maybe summertime areas, deeper water, shallower water. Somebody did ask earlier about targeting blue cats or fish in deeper water or shallower water this time of year, and do they change or do they go straight into deeper water and stay there? By no means are those fish going to be, in deep water or shallow water every single day. Every single day, those fish have may have completely different idea of what they want to do, and may go from 50 foot of water up into 10 foot of water in just a day's time. So keep an open mind about that and what you're doing and what you're looking for. Real catnappers, that's a good question, and this is probably where we're going to end up tonight. He asked, how does low current flow and water levels on the Ohio change your approach this time of year? So when we talk about water levels and what they do, that is, that can be like a whole nother topic on its own, but just like a quick reference of it. So the more current, and from zero current to a certain current, those fish can kind of be anywhere they want. From like say 0.7 to a mile and a half, 2 miles an hour, it puts those fish in a very predictable area. And you can, constantly mimic that situation up and down the river. Okay. So anytime that there's less current, it changes the way I fish because those fish can be anywhere. You necessarily don't have to particularly be in a drop-off, a creek mouth, a seam line. You know, those fish may be out in the middle of the river on a brush pile, you know, or out in the middle of that ledge more so than, you know, up on the side of it, or, you know, concentrated on a structure or cover that they need to be to get out of that current. Okay, so that definitely changes things. So Chad, I'm gonna answer one more question here. Chad asks, why does the seam line and ledge work best now? Not, I'm gonna guess you're saying not year round. So this time of year, blue cats seem to, you know, school up in more so than in the summertime. You'll definitely find schools of fish in the summertime, blue cats, but this time of year in those seam lines, it gives them an area to, if they want current, they can get in current. If they want out of current, they can kind of get out of current. And it's kind of bringing the bait to them. Most of the stuff that's coming down the river, you know, if you can imagine, it's getting swept down through there. It's going to be in that seam line a lot of times. Okay, so a lot of that bait, a lot of things is going to be coming down that seam lines, and it gives them easy access to get in and out of current, food, and they can kind of school up together and be more conjugated and relax and not have to fight that cold water current all the time. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed. That's going to do it for us tonight. Make sure to come back next week. If I get a lot of questions on this topic, we might continue this topic a little bit next week. If not, if you guys have an idea of what you want to hear next week, make sure that you leave it in the comments. Give me that thumbs up if you like what we're doing. And if you have any ideas for Video Viewer Fridays, it's about that time of year. We're going to start that back up, and we'll be able to start putting out more Sonar Video Viewer Fridays. I know you guys like those a lot, so we're going to try to start cracking back into those. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. And as always, we will catch you guys next week for more Tackle Talk Tuesday. Thanks for watching.